Welcome to the Story Apothecary, a podcast filled with healing and medicinal stories. My name is Nana Tomova, and I'm a traditional storyteller and a pharmacist, and stories are medicines which I dispense. In this podcast, you'll find my prescriptions of stories for the body, mind, heart, soul, and for the earth. So I invite you to join me as we enter the healing world of stories together. Hello, so glad you could join me for another episode of the Story Apothecary. It is now July and I can't believe it was May last time I recorded an episode. The last few months have just flown by and I hadn't realised how long it had been. So welcome. Welcome to July, a month of sun, of birdsong, of ripening fields, of sunflowers, herbs, cherries. It is a lovely month. I've been enjoying watching the fields change and the trees and the flowers around me on the local walks that I do. Everything's different every day. It's so great to witness it. If you are subscribed to my newsletter, which I sent out this week, you'll know that I've been going through a few changes of letting things go. My lecturing position, my NHS job as a pharmacist are going this month. And, well, it is a time of change. New things will come. And with those things, stories, always. And I will still, of course, be continuing this wonderful podcast, which gives me so much joy. And I hope it does for you. So this episode, I am delighted to share an interview with you. I was very happy when Wendy Shearer agreed to join me in this podcast. It's so wonderful to speak with her. Wendy Shearer is a professional London storyteller and author. Wendy's repertoire of stories of tricksters, shapeshifters, ancient Greek heroes, gods and goddesses is drawn mostly from her Afro-Caribbean heritage and her first degree in classics. Wendy is an author of 2 books, her latest, Caribbean Folk Tales, Stories from the Islands and the Windrush Generation, which contains traditional oral stories combined with powerful biographical accounts. She is also an author of the book African and Caribbean Folktales, Myths and Legends, that contains stories of brave girls, flowing rivers, whose protectors will fight back. It contains stories of fighting back injustice and of celebrated of myths and legends of the lands of Africa and the Caribbean. That book of stories, is on my bedside table. I love it. Wherever we go, stories go too, Wendy says. And it is such a pleasure to welcome her to the Story Apothecary podcast for an interview and a story. Wendy, so lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining the Story Apothecary. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Trying to think how we met. We met 3 or 4 years ago at a Michael Harvey workshop in London. I think that's the first time I saw you in person, which was such a joy.
That's right, getting to practice the art of storytelling together.
Yeah. So you're a London-based storyteller with of Afro-Caribbean heritage.
That's right.
And you are lucky to have a childhood filled with stories, oral stories passed down from your grandmother, as well as just surrounded by stories.
Yes, I think my memories of childhood are just steeped in stories. Partly as well because my gran used to pick me up from school and she would take me to the library after school every day, and before we would go home. And so she would kind of do the pick up from my mum, and we lived very close to my grandmother in South London. So I just remember most afternoons just being surrounded by books and stories and a great rocking horse that I used to ride. And also my gran would tell me stories. She still tells stories. And my mother as well had a lovely collection, which she passed down to me, of Caribbean stories, and she would read them aloud to me, and I would love hearing her Guyanese accent that she has, and she would read the books sometimes in their Creole as well. So that was great fun.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. How a lovely way to be immersed in story and to be raised on stories. What's your earliest memory of a story coming into your life that you can remember?
Goodness, my earliest memory is actually of telling a story, and I think I was about 5, and we had gone to a beach. It was a beach holiday. It was just me and my parents. And I remember there was some kind of entertainer. It was in England. There was an entertainer saying, "Has wants to come up on the stage?" And they must have been inviting something. And I just said to my parents, "I'm going up. I've got a story to tell." I remember going up, and I do remember looking out, and it was because the lights were on me. I couldn't see anybody in the audience. It was just darkness. But I remember telling this story that I had written, and it was based on my memories of traveling to Guyana. We would go. I think the first time we went, I was about 4. And I remember telling this long story, and that I'd partly heard, partly made up. But that's my first memory, and I feel so shocked at myself being so brave at that age to just march up there and share this story.
Oh, I love it. You're a natural storyteller from at least the age of 5. It's so wonderful. And being an oral storyteller mean to you? An ancient tradition, kind of rooted from place where you come from, where family comes from.
Yes, it means so much to me. I'm British born here, but my parents are from Guyana, and Guyana's in South America, but part of the Federation of the Caribbean culture. And storytelling is a big part of that culture. So it means so much to me to be able to carry on the tradition of sharing stories that carry our history and our memories, and verbally, because traditionally that still happens now. People would sit outside and they would talk about what's happened at the end of the day. It was a way, and still is, of bringing family and friends and community together. So I feel that I'm carrying on that tradition, in a time when, as we know, there are so many things competing for our attention. But it's lovely to be able to do it where you don't have to rely on anything else except your memory and the interaction with whoever you are telling it to.
Great, thank you. And you're a wonderful storyteller, so engaging. We worked together during the Cinderella project, and I'm just so captivated
Oh,
it's such a descriptive, wonderful, engaging way in the way you tell stories. It's like I'm transported to your lands. It's so lovely. Um,
my work is done. That's what I try and do.
Yeah, no, it's so rich, and I noticed that when I was reading. I've got the African Caribbean folktales with myths and legends by my bedside, which is a beautiful book, and there's something so unique about a book of stories written by a storyteller. You can just tell. And so there's such lovely descriptions. I've written a couple of them out. May I share them? Just a couple of words. This is in every story, including the story of the orange tree with tea, which is what you shared for the Cinderella story. I just love the descriptions. Before I knew that you were going to share that story, it was my favourite story in the book.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Um, but you've got things like beneath the clear blue waters of the Caribbean Sea, Mahmud Law's anger was bubbling over like a pepper pot stew.
I don't even
Um,
remember writing that.
oh, it's so I can just be there, and she had walnut-coloured skin and wide eyes like an owl. The way you tell descriptions are so evocative and so beautiful.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. That's yeah. I do try to bring a piece of the landscape and nature, the food in every aspect of the telling, or especially when I'm writing, you have the license of being even more descriptive because I won't always be able to remember phrases like that when I'm telling from orally, but that's just my way of grabbing a piece of everything and putting it into the plot as well.
No, it's lovely. Yeah, you do that really well. And there was something I wanted to talk to you about actually, because I noticed about the way you've written the stories and the way you tell stories orally, and also from your the Caribbean folk tales, stories from the islands and the Windrush generation. There's a bit at the beginning of the book where you say that I've adapted these stories and set them in the landscape of each island's history and culture, where the wildlife and plants feature as important characters in their own right, which is very evident from the stories. Um, and in all the stories that I've heard or read, you've got scenes of naming of native trees, familiar home smells of cooking or whatever might be, soothing sounds of sea breeze or calls of animals of that land. Um, what would you say a little bit more about the importance to you of the landscape of the stories?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the reasons that I wrote these books was, or I knew that I wanted to write these stories, was because sometimes I would collect them from they'd be handed down. I'd hear them orally, or I'd find snippets of a story which were just very short paragraphs and quite sometimes really dense. And I felt that as a writer, it's a wonderful opportunity to expand on that story, and that's my way of adapting it. By I'm writing for an audience of people that may never have been to these places and may never go, and I'm also writing for people that are there, and they they will enjoy remembering and having those images evoke memories, hopefully again by reading my tales. So I think there's a lot to to be gained by not just describing the story itself and the scene and the characters, but by remembering that nature impacts everyone's behaviour in the tale as well. And many of these folk tales obviously have animals in there and creatures that blend between the boundaries of human existence and mythology, or so that's a fantastic opportunity as well to include all of that too.
Thank you. Um, And also, I know that you mentioned that a lot of the stories were carried by enslaved Africans, blended with European and East Indian folklore. So there's something about place being remembered in the story as it's told, because it tells history. A certain tree would be native to that land, a certain smell, a certain fruit, a certain animal. Yeah, to me, there's something so special about remembering those things rather than changing them. Uh,
Absolutely, yeah, and because our stories are changed and retold over time, I really spend a lot of time researching when I'm going to share a story and going as far back as I can and finding out about the history and the landscape of that country and the people. I think that it's just as important, and sometimes I've done that a lot in both books. Really, I've brought things in just because I want to get that information across about the plants in that particular country, and how the people used everything that was available to them, whether it was for eating or transportation in their homes.
That's great. I work in a similar way, so when I tell stories, I often, well, I always would go and really delve deep in trying to insert some of those mythology or plants because it makes the story come alive,
Yes,
um,
yeah, I think you're right.
completely. And it's something about the people being able to see as you're telling a story what the people rooted in that landscape would have been able to actually see in front of them
Yes.
during the story being told. Yeah, something very special around that. I think that it's important for stories not to be changed and kind of those things being kept there. But I know there's a lot of debate around modernising stories or changing them to fit in with the landscape, but you're currently there. So I'm often having very friendly and curious debates with people. Just wondering what your opinion is around modifying stories.
Modifying them. Oh, that is interesting. I think for me personally, I love, I'm really passionate about sharing stories, sharing as many as much as we can, passing them on, gifting them to everybody, and not being possessive with them. I think that's what we do as a storyteller. That's our gift to the world. And so as an oral storyteller like yourself and myself, we tell usually traditional stories. And so if you're
Hmm.
going to tell traditional stories, and you've got to
Hmm.
keep those traditions and the history and the culture that is carried within it. However, I think they're just like with writers, everyone has their right and to adapt and retell as they wish according to their style, according to who they are aiming it for. I had a really wonderful time when I was researching for my first book. I had the opportunity to speak with Grace Holworth,
Mm.
librarian, storyteller, and author of many children's books, and I was concerned about my adaptations of these stories, and being a British person, although I am a Black British woman, I was concerned about writing about something that I haven't fully experienced myself, and I'm an adapting, in some sense. And she just said to me words along something along the lines of, you write what you know, and Wendy, you are writing for a new audience. So I felt like this was giving me a little pass, or just reinforcing what I'm trying to do, which is remember who the story is for. I want people to be able to access it. So I think it's acceptable to adapt it, but I do think it's important to keep the structure, to keep the cultural significance or representations of, or whatever it is that you're telling in the story. So, for example, there are animals that might have certain meanings in a particular culture. A snake might be revered in one culture and disliked or mistrusted in another. So I would never change that meaning, for example. Sometimes there are transformations, and I look carefully at it. If I'm going to change that creature and transform them into something else, it has to be in line with whatever those people believed at the time. So that's how I approach it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like a domino effect. Once you change something, then there is something else will be changed. And unless you're really familiar or have done research around the culture and the story, where it comes from, political facts, historical facts of the country, when it was told, where it might have come from, where it might have travelled, you might just change everything. The whole story of the land, the whole story of the people. Um, yeah, it's really interesting how such a small change, for example, an animal or a bird or a food or a tree, might sometimes just completely metamorphise the whole story into something else.
Yes, and sometimes people, I sometimes think about the challenge of how accurate we're trying to be. I'm not a historian, I'm not a teacher, And I do sometimes, we do as storytellers have the license of saying, well, it might be
Yes.
true, but it might not.
Yeah.
However, for example, I in my second book, Caribbean Folk Tales and Stories from the Islands and the Windrush Generation, I wrote a story in there, which has a fig tree, and it's from Barbados, this story. And but I really wanted to get in to my tale the meaning of, or where the name of the island originally comes from. And I also find it absolutely, it's just beautiful to see these bearded fig trees in Barbados. But the bearded fig tree has nothing originally to do with that story about the fig tree. It's just that there are bearded fig trees in Barbados, and that's where it hails its name from. So I took some artistic license with that story, and centered it around these bearded fig trees. And a Bayesian said to me, she said, Wendy, does the bearded fig tree, I don't think the bearded fig tree bears figs. And I said, aha, you are right, but they do bear fruit. And so there was a little bit of artistic license there. And I felt, for me, it was more important to put something there that will encourage people to perhaps go off and do a little bit of research into
Mm.
how the island got its name.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. A bearded fig tree. I'll have to look what they look like because I actually don't know. That's fascinating. I just imagine this fig tree with long,
Yes.
feathery, almost lichen-like beard structures, which are they soft or
Well,
soft?
they're like wispy. They look like
Oh, wispy.
hanging vines, and you can see them in places like the Eden Project. So places
Uh-huh.
that will have some of these trees from those other landscapes. You can see them there if you don't get yourself to Barbados. But yeah, they're just hanging down, and you might see them in films where there are bayous, and they do look quite amazing. And so the Spanish called it Los Barbados, which means the bearded ones. So because the trees were everywhere. So.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never knew that. Thank you. Um, on related to that topic, I've spoken to you about this before, and I've really struggled with around what stories am I allowed to tell. So it's a question that, and speaking about the importance of trees and animals and culture and history and all of those really important things. So I like stories from all around the world, including places or countries that I've never visited. They just speak to me, and I love them. They're incredible. And at the same time, I've really struggled with telling them, especially in the last couple of years, where I think, should I stick to European stories, uh, mostly or only? Or do I have a right to tell other stories from other places and other cultures? Um, it's a one of those questions where perhaps it hasn't got an answer, or maybe it's got many answers. I don't know. Um, I'm wondering, what do you think about who has the right to tell African or Caribbean stories?
Oh yes, that is a very hot topic, isn't it? Well, in my opinion, I think I want as many people as possible to hear these stories, and read these stories. I think it will bring so many communities and people together if we can actually learn more about our heritage and history, especially Black history, and whether that's Black British or American. But that's one of my goals I'd love to contribute to. So the more people that tell it, the better. However, I do feel that indigenous stories should be told by people that have some connection to the place that they are telling. I feel that those stories are quite precious, and they hold
Mm.
um, a lot of pain and history in it that perhaps
Yes.
should be respected in a way that can only be done by someone who is really personally connected to that place and that time. That's just my personal belief. I know many others share that. I don't only tell African and Caribbean stories, so I don't think I have the right to tell someone that they should only tell from stories that's their heritage. I also tell ancient Greek myths, partly because I studied that. I studied classical civilization at university, and those stories and philosophy and art, just really captured my interest. Now, as a storyteller, I am able to tell those stories with their African counterparts, or the African links in those stories, which are missing from our British
Yes.
curriculum. So I love to tell both stories, and I love to add in elements and the links there. But I'm not Greek. I just I enjoy them, and I've studied them, and I feel confident to tell them because of that. Um, so and I myself, my heritage is African Caribbean, but I am British. So if we really want to get down to the nub of it, who am I
Mm.
to be telling a story from Tanzania? I haven't been there before, but I feel qualified to tell that. I feel comfortable to tell that, and for the reasons that we've just
Yes.
discussed. So I think it really is about the intention of what you're trying to do when you choose a story, and I think also looking at where that story is coming from and the respect that you're paying to it.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very aware that with other stories, for example, some of the African stories that I really love, but I haven't had the courage to tell because I don't know if I should tell them as a white person who hasn't really visited Africa apart from a week in Morocco, which was beautiful. So yeah, I wanted to give voice to the question, even though I know that the answer is quite complex. Um, yeah,
Absolutely. And I think we're called to certain stories.
mm,
I didn't set out as a storyteller I didn't think I was going to be on the journey that I have been. I didn't plan it all out at all, but I am called to these stories, and I think everybody is in some way. We don't
yeah,
tell any and everything
no, no.
just because we're a storytellers.
You're listening to the Story Apothecary, and I'm in conversation with Wendy Shearer about stories. There's some mirroring between life and story as well. The stories that, when I have discussions with storytellers, we're very careful about the stories that we pick, because if you pick the wrong story, then it's going to have massive repercussions in your own life. You're inviting something in. Every word that you speak is something. You're enchanting something. It's like a spell that you're creating with stories. Such powerful
Yes,
mediums.
I agree, absolutely.
And so, I mean, oral stories have been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Um, I'm a great believer of oral stories, hence the podcast, and hence we're both storytellers. So we both tell stories. How do you think stories can enrich people's lives today, and how do you think they can contribute to life?
Oh, in so many ways. I think I'm so privileged to be able to tell in so many different places. I tell in schools, in museums, heritage sites, um, great big public events or small events, and so I get to see the joy that sharing a story can bring, and whether and it has the ability to connect people that might not even know each other in the same room. They're able to connect in that single moment of togetherness whilst all sharing. It's a shared experience telling a story, and also many of the stories have a meaning that people might find challenging to discuss, or can relate to. So I think it's such a powerful way to help everybody with our general health, our well-being, um, and sort of a stirring of and a releasing of emotions. And we definitely all need that in the world today.
We certainly do. We certainly do. Yeah, they're so powerful because the stories will stay with people for sometimes for years.
Yes, and you just actually, a child said to me the other day, "Can we tell this story? Can we tell it?" This is an online thing, and I was like, "Yes, go and share it, and make it yours, and carry it on." And I think that's the beauty of it. No matter how old a story is, and some of us tell some really old stories,
Mm.
they are still relevant today. There are still meanings that we can gather from it today and learn from. So, absolutely.
Yeah, we're not facing new problems, are we?
Same old.
Same old, yeah. Wars and grief and loss and illness and all of that has been around for thousands of years. So sometimes I hear we don't need old stories, we need to create new stories. And I think it's been said before, any story that one person may write individually will never be as rich as stories that have been passed down for generations collectively, you know, and there is nothing new that's going on here.
Nothing new here. And actually, that reminds me, when I was thinking about how to uh, set up the chapters and the themes within my books, I was thinking about those themes that are quite traditional in those cultures, but also they're just relevant today still. So, I've got a section on love and loss and caution and justice and tricksters. Who doesn't like a good trickster story?
Oh, yeah.
But yes, it doesn't matter how old it is, they're still relevant today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, will you tell us a story?
I would love to tell you a story.
Great, me too.
Well, funnily enough, I don't know why, but I am always really drawn to trickster tales. I don't know if it's because I love the humour behind it and the sneakiness, and sometimes the downright cheek of whoever it is that's trying to be trickster. I'm going to share with you a folk tale from Tanzania, and it is called How Tortoise Fooled the Elephant. A story, a story. Let it come, let it go. Elephant and his friend Tortoise were both relaxing in the dry woodlands, just passing the time of day. It was extremely hot, and the sun beat down fiercely, just scorching the ground and the plants. Tortoise was nestled under a giant baobab tree for shade. An elephant was chewing on the bark of the tree, searching for water inside the trunk. Tortoise was a little bit bored, and he just couldn't resist teasing his friend. So he turned to Elephant and he said, "You think you are so mighty, and yet you move so slowly." And Elephant just looked down his long trunk at his little friend and laughed. "Of course I am mighty. I may be slow, but you are tiny and even slower." He just laughed and carried on chewing and ripping off the leaves with his long trunk. Well, Tortoise wrinkled up his face and felt a bit cross, actually. He didn't like to be thought of as tiny and slow. Who would? And so an idea for a contest crept into his mind. "I am slow, Elephant, but I am very agile. I could jump over your big head easily." And he poked his own head out of his hard shell just to show how agile and limber he really was. "Really?" asked Elephant. He was just more interested in chewing. "Yes, yes, I can prove it," said Tortoise with confidence. "Okay, Tortoise, go on then. Jump over my big head if you can." Elephant stopped chewing and slowly turned his heavy body around and waited for Tortoise to jump over his head. Oh, I can't do it today. It's too hot," moaned Tortoise. "Tomorrow, at dawn, I am my most limber at dawn, and then I will jump over your big head." So it was agreed that the next day there would be this contest. Elephant agreed, swished his long tail, and went back to just tearing the bark from the tree. Tortoise crawled back to chat to his wife. He found her resting under a bush and he told her all about his contest with Elephant. "What silliness is this?" she cried. "How can you possibly jump over Elephant's head? Did a coconut land on your shell and just take out all of your senses?" Well, Tortoise wasn't worried. He had a plan, which he shared with her. The following morning, as dawn painted the sky with her rosy colours, Elephant lumbered out to meet Tortoise. He found him already waiting beside the giant baobab tree. His head was hiding inside his shell. "Tortoise! Tortoise! Come out here! I'm here!" bellowed Elephant. Tortoise popped his head out and stood on one side of Elephant. His wife was hiding the side of Elephant. Tortoise stretched his tiny feet and got ready to jump. "I'm just limbering myself up," he said, stretching out his little feet. "Oh, come on and just jump already." Elephant did not like waiting, and he did not like being up this early either. Okay, here I go," said Tortoise, and he called out at the top of his voice, "Ah, yeah!" And then he scuttled off into the bushes to hide. His wife called out from the bush on the other side of Elephant, and she called out, "Hey, yeah!" Well, Elephant looked around, startled. He saw Tortoise's wife and thought it was Tortoise. "How did he get over there?" he thought. He flapped his wide ears in total confusion. I, I didn't see you jump. You'll have to jump again. This time I'll be looking much more closely." Tortoise's wife smiled and got ready to jump. She limbered up her neck, stretched out her little feet, and then she called out, "Ah, yeah!" And then she scuttled off into the bushes to hide. Tortoise crept out from his bush on the other side of Elephant, and he called out quickly, "Hey, yeah!" Elephant looked over, even more shocked. He had no idea that Tortoise was so fast. How could this be? He was feeling quite agitated now. "Well, it looks, Tortoise, as though you were right. You can jump over my head." He was a bit unhappy about this, but he had to admit it. Tortoise just wrinkled up his nose and smiled smugly. Of course, I told you I could." Well, Elephant wanted a chance to prove his own speed. He didn't like to leave it just like that. So he suggested another contest to Tortoise. "Let's have a race and see who can reach the lake at the foot of the mountain first." Poor Elephant. He was so desperate to show that he was faster than Tortoise. Said Tortoise, "Let's race tomorrow. I'm a little bit tired from all of that jumping. My legs need a rest." So he left Elephant to ponder on what had happened and inched away slowly to find his children. Three little tortoises were munching on some green nettles when their father explained to them that he needed their help. The following morning, when darkness was still heavy in the sky, Tortoise walked along the route of the race, and he placed one of his children at each stop. They hid in the bush, and they had been given instructions on what to do before day began. At sunrise, the birds started their morning chorus of chorusing, and Elephant lumbered out eagerly to start the race. Tortoise was already sitting quietly on a rock. And Elephant just thought, "Right, it's time to start. I'm ready." And he trumpeted loudly with his trunk to signal that the race was starting. "Halt!" shouted Elephant. And then he barged past Tortoise, sending him spinning around in his shell. Well, all four of Elephant's legs came crashing down onto the ground noisily, his body just heavily swaying, dust just scattering behind him. And in no time at all, he was so far ahead of Tortoise, who was just casually strolling behind. And after a while, Elephant began to feel quite hot and tired. He glanced behind and thought, "Let me just call out to Tortoise and see how my friend is doing." "How are you doing back there, Tortoise?" He wasn't expecting a reply. So you can imagine when his surprise when just ahead of him he heard, "I'm doing great." Well, Elephant nearly stopped in his tracks. How had Tortoise gotten ahead of him? Well, this was not good. So he speeded up, nearly toppling over his own giant feet. He flapped his ears to keep himself cool, and he pushed his body even further, thinking he must surely be ahead now. He called out again just to check. "How are you doing, my friend?" he called back. And again, he wasn't expecting a reply. So you can imagine his surprise, total disbelief, when just ahead of him, he heard a voice hail out, "I'm doing great, thank you." Elephant was furious, and he lurched forward even faster to overtake Tortoise. He stomped around large rocks, sending clouds of dust hurtling in all directions. He didn't even stop to break off and eat any bamboo growing like tall beanstalks on the roadside. He was determined. But out of curiosity, Elephant called out again just to check in with Tortoise. "How are you doing?" And for the third time, Elephant heard the reply ahead of him. "I'm doing great, thank you." Well, Elephant was stunned. This did not make any sense to him. How was Tortoise, the slowest creature he knew, able to get ahead of him? Well, feeling even more determined, Elephant made a dash for the finishing line as he saw the clear waters of Lake Nyasa in the distance. He was already imagining that he would have time to soak in the fresh water and just relax whilst waiting for Tortoise to catch up. But as he came around the corner, feeling quite sure of his own victory, Elephant saw Tortoise resting in the grass. He stopped suddenly. He stared. He could not believe his eyes. "How did you get here so fast, Tortoise? I didn't even see you pass me." He spluttered in disbelief. And Tortoise just nodded his wrinkly nose and smiled wisely. Elephant was beaten. He had to admit that Tortoise was much faster than him. And to this very day, he cannot understand how Tortoise managed it.
Yay! Thank you. I love that. What a lovely story. I was laughing and all manner of things in the background as you were telling it. Oh, thanks, Wendy.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I've really struggled with Trickster tales, actually.
Really?
Until for some reason, in the last month, I'm like, Trickster tales. I need to read as many Trickster tales as possible. I need the Trickster in my life. But until then, it's so funny you're bringing Trickster tale out of anything you could have brought. It's amazing.
It's really funny. I obviously knew secretly you wanted one.
There you go. There you go. Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure to have you and for you to tell a story on the Story podcast. A
Oh,
real
it's
joy.
great joy, and yeah, lots of fun. And I'm really, really pleased to be part of your collection.
Thank you. I know that people will be so eager to find out where they can find out more about you, where they can hear you tell stories, where they can purchase your books. What's the best place?
Yes, well, you can find out what I'm doing from my website, which is just my name, wendyshearer.co.uk. And I've got, in terms of public events, I think my next event is actually sold out. I'm going to be doing a wonderful session with Story Jam and the Cricket Club this Saturday. Which is great in Dorset. But after that, it will be after the summer in September. I'm going to be having my recently postponed a book event for my latest book of Caribbean folk tales at the Barbican on the 14th of September. And it's a public event, so people can come and hear me talk about the book. It'll be a Q&A, a bit of reading, and I will also be telling one of the stories there.
Oh, great. I'll make sure to put a link of your website on the show notes so people can find you with ease. And I'm sure, I hope you find some listeners. They're eager to buy books, signed, of course, and hear the stories. Oh, it's lovely. I really recommend Wendy's storytelling. It is beautiful and evocative.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time together. I'm so grateful that you have been able to join me.
Thank you so much for asking me. It's been a real joy to be able to share and discuss with you.
And for me as well. Any last words that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think I'll leave as I began, with a story. Let it come and then let it go.
Wise advice. Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, week, month, and I'm sure I'll see you again very soon.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for joining me in the Story Apothecary podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this special episode. If you enjoy the Story Apothecary, then consider supporting me on Patreon via monthly subscription, or if you prefer one-off, buy me a coffee. Thank you to In Feathers for the beautiful music. I'll see you again very soon. Have a wonderful July.